So welcome everyone to our third webinar session of this year's leadership conference. And again, our theme is Reflect, Refresh, and Flourish. And the whole idea is that we're carrying this message out to make sure that you take care of yourself this summer, that you take time to feed your mind, feed your soul, and obviously stay physically active however you can in this heat. I know most of you hopefully attended our orientation last week, but I wanted to go ahead and share a little bit because some of you I know this might be the first session that you are attending. We are OneFuture Coachella Valley. You will get to work with Fatima, myself, Marlene, Ernie, and Ricardo, who you see here this next academic year. Our focus here is to help you in your journey through college and into your career. And so that might look very different every year. You know, the first year you're with us, it might be more academic, then it might be work, or it might be internships. You get to decide how we support you, but that's who we are. And if you want to get more familiarized with our work, we do have an orientation webinar recording that we will be posting in the next few weeks for you to view. As we always like to do, we kind of like doing housekeeping rules only to ensure that we are all on the same page. This is a professional environment. We want to offer everyone the same courtesy and respect that we want to have, right? This is Frugal Living as a college student, and I think that we are all very interested in how we can live a fuller life, right? Have a better experience, whether it be academically or with the food we eat or with the resources we need, even traveling. So we'll cover a little bit of everything. And like I said, we will share a really cool resource. There's tons of tips to take advantage of. You get to decide what area you want to be frugal in and where you're like, I am not compromising that and I'm willing to pay this much, but I will save in this area. You get to decide. That's the fun part of it. I want to make sure before I move on, I want to have Fatima and Marlene welcome you and introduce themselves to you because they are my co-presenters. So Fatima, Marlene, before we get to this question.
Thank you, Cristina, and thank you again, everyone, for joining us. It's nice to see a lot of your names starting to become more familiar. Again, super excited to be here today and to be presenting on this topic.
Thank you, Fatima. Unfortunately, I didn't hear about this until now, and I didn't take advantage of it when it was offered in person, and I already graduated. I mean, I could attempt to use it during a master's program, which I probably will, but take advantage of these resources because college is expensive, and I probably could have saved a couple extra $1,000 by following these tips.
Thank you, Marlene. And I just want to say, I'm 45 and it's something you can use forever. And so it's not too late. So I love the fact that you said I'll start taking advantage of it today. Before we get into this question, I want to tell you why this kind of became a topic. In 2010, I was working for a university. At that point, I had a career, I had a husband, a family. We both were doing really great, but you know, the housing market had gone through a ton of changes. You probably were too young to remember that stage, but it happened from 2008 to 2010. And so during that time frame, I was working for UC Riverside. Every year it feels like they were cutting our budget or they were making us take furloughs, which means time off without pay. And finally, in 2010, the budget just crashed for the UC system. And so what happened? I became a casualty of that crash. I was laid off for the first time in my life. After college, I did not have a job. I had a husband who was providing his part, but I had to get my hat on and think really quickly. What can I do for my family? Where can I create some cost savings? And so it almost like it threw me into this lifelong kind of habit now where I love to find ways to save and I practice it in my life. We're very fortunate now that obviously I'm working and things turned out okay. They happened. And so now as you're going through this life transition or you are in it through college, I want to say that you can have experiences at a cost savings. And some of it might mean that you give up certain things or you decrease budgets or increase budgets depending on what your priorities are that particular time in your life. And so we wanted to start it with a question. What does frugal mean? I want to say that because when I tell people I'm frugal, sometimes they're like, oh, that means being cheap. No, it doesn't. It means it means being careful with my money. It means that for me, if I work an hour, I ask myself, if I'm going to spend whatever my hour salary on that, is that worth it? Because I will never get that 1 hour back, right? I value my time. Therefore, what I want to use my money on, which nowadays, full transparency, it's spent on my children. So most of the time it goes to golf lessons, food, housing, shelter, things. And if you ask me, is it worth it? Of course it is, because I am raising some beautiful children. So, but what does it mean to you?
We have one student just sharing, from what I know, being frugal is being careful with what you spend your money on. So kind of along the same lines what you were mentioning, Cristina, kind of picking and choosing where you put your money.
Yes.
So to me, being frugal means looking at my priorities and using available resources. So yeah, what's important to you, what's something that you're willing to compromise, and something that you're not. I have a few more answers coming up. Being frugal to me is only spending money on what is essential in my life and being careful with where and what I spend my money on. So yeah, again, what is a priority to you and where can you afford to put maybe splurge a little bit more?
Yes, it exactly does mean that. And for many of us, it's going to mean different things, right? It's going to mean what are our priorities that particular time in our lives. And so today's presentation, we're going to go through a couple of topics. We're going to go through assessing your budget so you can kind of learn how to prioritize it. We're also going to go through cost of attendance so you can learn some tricks on how you can lower some of your cost of attendance at an institution, whether it's for books or insurance or whatever. And then we're going to give you some for fun, entertainment, and travel, because it is important to your experience, as well as giving you some money saving apps, and then just because you are a student, discounts.
So yeah, just kind of carrying on the same message about assessing your budget. We talked about understanding, and in other words, your assets and liabilities. So assets, what is it that you own? What is it that you have available to utilize? What resources? It can be money, it can be your savings, whatever you have in your savings account. And you maybe, for those of you that maybe are already working, maybe it's a 401k account. Do you own a car or a house? It's those things that you can technically you own and that you can put a value to. When we're talking about assessing your budget, we're also telling you, let's also consider what are the liabilities that you have, those responsibilities that you owe and that you have to pay out of your savings, out of your checks, out of the income that you get every month or every week or every term, if it's scholarships and things like that. So those could include any bills that are due. It can be your utilities, it can be your credit card, that card payment, any student loans that you may have to pay eventually. We invite you to kind of start looking at those things, because eventually what you're going to have available to utilize in those extra expenses or those little things where you want to splurge a little bit, or that extra travel or that road trip or that concert that you want to go to, that's going to be everything that you have left over after you take care of your liability. So you got to make sure that when you're considering everything that you have, I just got paid, I don't know, and let's just put a number, $500 in this last 2 weeks. Well, yeah, but out of those $500, I have to pay $300 in bills, and then I have to pay this other payment. So I only have $50 left for those 2 weeks. Do I save that money? Do I spend it on tickets for the movies? What is it that you do with that money, right? So that's when we go into the second point, assessing your needs versus your wants. What is it that you're going to choose to spend your money on? Is it something that you need? Is it something that can wait? Growing up, I remember my dad always, when I would ask for money to buy whatever, whether it was, a new pair of jeans, a new pair of shoes, my dad was very frugal, and he would always be like, do you need an extra pair of shoes? Are your shoes not in a good condition anymore? And it didn't mean that if I did have good condition shoes, I wasn't going to buy them again. I think it was just his trainer process of like, do you really need that right now? Or would you rather spend it on something else, right? Because sometimes it's just something that we want, not something that we necessarily need. And then also starting to consider, if it is something that I need or something that I really want, do I have to get the very expensive, I don't know, laptop? Or can I get a more affordable option that's still going to get me through, right? As a student, sometimes we want to go, I don't know, for the best Apple MacBook, that we can find, and that's great. But if a more affordable computer is going to get us through and get us to do our work, then that might be the option for the time being. So it's just kind of inviting you to consider those options that might be available for you. And also, when in doubt, anywhere that you go, ask if they have a student discount. We're going to be covering a lot of different places and topics and resources that you can use to help you save some money. But definitely don't limit yourself to the ones that we're mentioning. Anywhere that you go, you can ask if they have a student discount. And a lot of places, you'll be surprised will say yes. Definitely take advantage of that student ID, that student email.
The other piece of it that we thought was really important was kind of lowering your cost of attendance. A lot of the times you think that because a certain institution puts a certain cost of attendance that that's what you have to pay, right? It's the assumption. Like they said that tuition and all of these things are there, then I should pay for everything. Well, one of the things that we'll cover later on is sometimes they offer you health insurance, right? But you can actually swap it or you can decline it if you have your personal one. But in this particular slide, we wanted to tell you to like use some of the things like FAFSA to create, and applying on time, getting, scholarships, or making sure that you do everything that you have to do to make sure that you can access the free money, the scholarships, the programs that are available at your institution that give you that revenue that you're going to need to kind of lead a more fuller student experience, right? And so we thought this presentation was put together with the student's lens that is coming in her freshman year. She's doing an internship with us, and she thought it was really important for students to know that there's easy wins, and some of these are easy wins. Your FAFSA, your Cal Grant, your scholarships, accessing all that kind of free money, because sometimes we forget that those are available. And so we just wanted to make sure to remind you on that part of it. And I know, Fatima, you covered some of the things that they can take advantage of, right? Some of the things that as a student, they might be getting for free or that they should explore. Well, we've learned in this process that there's a lot of free stuff or there's a lot of discounted stuff. And I know, Marlene, you just recently graduated, and I kind of wanted to have you kind of speak on that piece of it because you are a recent grad. I'm going to have my daughter go into her first year of college next year. And so I'm also keeping an eye out for this because it's going to be of my interest to make sure that I can get software or technology or all the discounts. So I don't know if you want to talk about some of the things that you took advantage at Cal State that were free, and then I can cover some of the gaps as well.
Yes, actually, this is something that I actually did look into a lot because I have a sister. She's younger than me by 1 year, and we would take the same classes. We were in the same major, so it was either we paid double or we were frugal and we paid for one. If you have it, don't buy it again. I had my laptops and my iPads. I gave my sister my laptop and I was just using my iPad. If you don't have access to that, your library, they almost always have a tutoring center where you can go in. There's school programs. I know at College of the Desert, I believe it was Trio Aces or the STEM programs. They have laptops that you can check out for the entire term. Libraries, some schools offer laptops you can check out, textbooks, price match, search. You can find them for cheap almost anywhere. Ask friends. If you're in the same program, ask around. They might have taken that class already. They have the book just laying around because, to be honest, we don't actually throw those books away. They're just piling up in the corner. I got my books for free from a friend because she wasn't taking the class anymore. She still had the books. Me and her, we would swap books. I would pay for some. She would pay for some. We would swap. Ebooks are one of the cheaper ones. The manufacturers, they're cheaper, especially if you're going to buy through the bookstore, like your school bookstore. Sometimes it's just cheaper to go through the manufacturer because that's where they're getting it. But look around. Don't be afraid.
When I was in college, professors always rewrote books or added information. And yeah, sometimes the last version almost has the exact same thing. And then it's just a chapter. And sometimes I remember asking professors themselves, hey, do you mind if I use the last version? And they were very nice. And we're like, no, yeah, go ahead, use that one. And I'll give you the chapter that I just added. So it also helps to talk to your professors because they are very genuine and wanting to support you. What I wanted to highlight here is that technology has discounts for everything. You'll notice in August too, that as back to school sales come up, if you buy a laptop or something, they'll give you earbuds or they'll offer some kind of incentive or some kind of percentage. Ask for them. Sometimes they might not be advertising them, but one of my secrets is that when I talk to salespeople, I'll be like, hey, listen, I know there might not be a sale going on, but is there anything you think I could lower the price? And if you're going to spend $1,500, even if it's 10%, you do the math. That's $150 that you just saved and you can apply to something else. And most of the time, like I said, salespeople are pretty friendly too. I do it everywhere that I go. I hate paying full price. And that's just me because I feel like if I can even save 5 here, 10 there, they snowballs into other things that I like to do, like travel. Anything else, Fatima, that we missed before we go to the next slide?
We actually have a couple students that wrote in the comments. One of them says that if they're not mistaken, they believe that the UC schools have a technology grant that you might be able to use it during your time there. Another student said if you save your receipt, you can qualify for reimbursement. Reimbursement is a huge and very important word when it comes to money in school. Some schools will even adjust your grants or even reimburse you some items if you have your receipts.
Those are excellent points. And what I do recommend students is even connecting with your Office of Financial Aid, because that would be something you'd want to ask the UC Office of Financial Aid. Is there a grant What I have seen in my experience is that sometimes when you have outdated technology, you can actually ask financial aid to increase your cost of attendance, and they will put in the technology and other funding will go into it as well. We've seen that actually this last year probably was a year that I saw it the most because of COVID. And so very true. Thank you. And here we go. So campus resources, and I will probably connect with Fatima and Marlene on this one. But the one thing I wanted to share on this was look at what your campus has to offer and what you are already paying. So these resources that are there are technically not free to you. Why? Because you pay them in tuition. You pay a tuition, that tuition pays for these buildings and the staff. So my mind frame goes into, I'm going to use the stuff. If I'm paying for it, it's like paying a Netflix subscription and never watching a movie on there. Why would I want to do that, right? And so I wanted to put that on there because most universities have resources and they are underutilized, with the exception of a few, right? Like the gym probably has a lot of activity. But there's health services. One example would be mental wellness. That particular service goes underutilized many times. And you technically, most of the time when you're in a university, you do have opportunities to meet with a therapist or a mental wellness coach. You're technically paying for that. So I want you to go in there and like review your resources and then ask yourself, what could I use or take more advantage of if you haven't already started doing that? I see Fatima shaking her head. I wanted to have Fatima and Marlene share a little bit about the other resources we have.
Yeah, I think I'm going to mention a little bit on the academic programs that you may find at your university and that also usually have a lot of different resources and discounts available to students. And one of them is like the printing, the computer access. Those are huge because even though we've shifted into what's printing anymore, right? After this last year, it's like we turn everything in digitally. Well, before we went virtual, we would turn in papers in person, and a lot of teachers prefer that, even though they'll ask you sometimes to turn it in through the computer. They also want to see the hard copy. And I cannot tell you how many times I was running to my class with like 5 minutes, and I needed to print the paper because I've completed and it's submitted, but I need to also turn it in. And it's just great to be able to have these resources because when you're part of any program, kind of like Marlene mentioned earlier, TRIO, EOPS, any of those programs that have offices on campus and tutoring centers, academic centers, and things like that, they usually offer training at discounted rates. I mean, it might not seem like it's a lot, but when you're printing like 10-page papers for like 3 different classes, like those things add up. And then you have to print it again when you update it or do the revision. So those are little places where you can kind of save, even if it's just a couple extra bucks, you can save those up, and that can potentially mean your breakfast for tomorrow, or that Starbucks that we know we can't afford to have every day, but because you save $3 on your printing, now you can have that Starbucks. Just make sure that you check out for any tutoring center, career center, or anything on your campus and see what kind of resources they offer, because printing is just one that I can think of. Computer access, checking out laptops, technology. There's just a lot of different ones that they'll offer. And sometimes some even offer you like textbook vouchers for like your school textbook store. They'll offer you kind of like a little scholarship to buy your books or things like that. So make sure that you ask, and then you're checking your emails from any programs that you're part of, because they're there to offer you resources. And if you're part of them, that might mean that there's resources available for you. So make sure that you check those out.
And I wanted to make it, as we move forward, we're throwing cost saving tips. And the reason I say that is because that's really what being frugal is looking at what you have access to, looking at how much funding you have or how much funding you can create or money you can create, and then how you use it to stretch out or increase your experience for it to be more. And so we covered a couple of things. We've covered technology, we've covered accessing, obviously, your financial resources. And this is a really important one, the grocery piece of it, right? As college students, I remember, and I'm sure probably Marlene or Fatima have their own stories. When I lived on my own, we had to get creative with my roommates in terms of how we saved, or for some reason, food was always kind of at the bottom of the thing. It was always like the last thing we thought about. I thought about gas sometimes more than I thought about food, right? And so one of the things that we've learned and we've known for a little bit, we're trying to make a proactive effort, is creating awareness for CalFresh resources. Most of the time, this is a benefit that a lot of students would qualify for if you apply to it. And many of our students are now taking advantage of it. And I've heard from different ranges, from 100 to somewhere into the 300. Of course, everyone's situation is different. It depends if you live with your family, if you live on your own, if there's multiple generations. There's tons of little what ifs, but what I want to say is if you're not using or accessing these resources and you have what we call a low EFC, I'm not sure what the range is, but I know if you have a low EFC, which is estimated family contribution, you should apply and you should put it on your things of to do this summer, because that could potentially mean that you would cover your food budget. And if you even got like $200 a month for 10 months while you're in school, or 12 months, that means that that would be $2,000 to $2,400 in your pocket that you would not have to worry about. So I want to really, really emphasize this, because this is an area where we're creating more awareness and more outreach, because it is an underutilized benefit that many of the students that qualify for are not taking advantage of. And so, Fatima, if you want to add anything to CalFresh before we kind of go through the other list of things, or Marlene.
I just shared the link. You can answer a few questions. I believe you can kind of do like a little assessment by answering a few questions and see if you may qualify before you even submit the application. So for anyone that might be interested in seeing if this is an option that you might be eligible for, check it out. Like Cristina said, we know a few students that thought they weren't qualified, weren't really sure, they went for it, and now they're receiving their monthly, $250 debit literally into a debit card to pay for the food. That's just another place that you can definitely take advantage of. And I was going to mention on the previous slide, we did have campus resources and campus events. Take advantage of those. Now that we're going to be going into, in person, hopefully as things start to get even more and more back to normal, there's going to be a lot of campus events and things that the school or different centers are going to be putting up. And sometimes it's cultural events, whatever it is that they're celebrating, and they usually offer free food, or they'll be giving out, little snacks and whatnot. That got me through college on some hard days. And sometimes it's just that you don't have time to like sit down and make a meal, and, having, it might not be the best, but having that slice of pizza by attending a workshop, sometimes is a lifesaver. You don't want to go home and have to take my bike and then come back. And so if I could just go to, attend that one workshop, I was learning something new, I was getting to meet people, and I was getting free food. So take advantage of those resources and those events that happen on campus. So they'll also sometimes get like supplies, and they'll do like opportunity drawing for gift cards and things like that. So a lot of freebies in those events as well.
So the other tips that I like to tell students, and I still practice some of them, is I like to shop seasonal. What do I mean by that? I mean that if, for example, grapes are in season, most likely they're going to be on sale in the grocery store. If, nectarines, whatever is in season, fruits or vegetables, I like to fill my fridge with that, because that normally means it's going to taste better, and it's going to be also nicer to my wallet. And so it's kind of a win-win thing. I remember, I don't know what it was, but like last year we went to buy mangoes because we wanted mangoes, and they were kind of expensive. So it was a splurge, but they were not in season. And I'm telling you, then I regretted. I paid like $2 a mango, but we really want a mangoneada, and it's winter time, and let's buy it. Well, it was a bust. They were terrible. So we spent the money. We didn't even eat the mangoes. And I was like, okay, this is why I shop seasonal. So I encourage you guys to do that. And you can put it on your phones. It's not that you even have to get all that paper in the mail. You can have a few stores that you follow. I like Stater Brothers and I like Ralph's. Some people are like, those are expensive. You'd be surprised. Sometimes they're cheaper than Walmart or Winco. And I go to those stores as well. I like also Costco, but we are a family of 5. So I understand when it's just one student. Some of the things that I've heard students do is that they get together. I know Ernie used to share that with him and his roommates. They'd go and buy certain beverages or certain things like, spaghetti that they knew they were going to eat a lot of, and then they split the cost. So that kind of makes you guys work like a team, and then it's cheaper. And if you have time, you should go to the food court, because the food court has $1.50 hot dog, and I don't think they have them anywhere that cheap, right? So that'll be like a nice meal splurge for the day. Restaurants offer tons of discounts, and if you follow them, or if you like a certain restaurant and you become going all the time, then they give you points, or they will give you a free treat on your birthday. And so I tell students, if you're going to be going away for the first time this year, sign up for the Starbucks, sign up for Krispy Kreme, sign up for a ton of little rewards, because, then that week you can treat yourself. You can treat yourself to a coffee, you can treat yourself to a free donut, and so on. Fun fact, Krispy Kreme will give you a dozen donuts on your birthday. My daughter proved it this year on June 4th. She had me going to different little areas. She's like, Mom, I got a free donut or I got a coffee or whatever. So it just added a little bit to her birthday year this year when she turned 17. So CalFresh is a big takeaway, shopping seasonal and enjoying the food that you eat. Because I think at the end of the day, that's the other piece from the last slide that I like to tell students. Sometimes it's the last thing that we think about, but it really is one of the first things that we should be thinking about. Our meals are really important. And research has shown that if you eat well, you sleep well, you're active, then you perform better. So spending a little time to take care of that is going to equal more results in your education.
For entertainment, we put a few things here, movie theaters. If it's not a student discount that they have either point system or membership that you're able to buy, and eventually you accumulate points to be able to get an extra free ticket, or the one that you can buy like a membership for like every month you pay so much and they give you 2 tickets or something like that. So you're eventually paying the price of 1 ticket once a month, but they're giving you 2. So there's little different memberships for different places. Costco, I know that they have the discounted tickets. So you end up saving like 10, 20 bucks. So you end up saving the price of 1 ticket if you buy them on the bundle. You already know you're going to be going with your friends this weekend and it's 4 of you. You could just buy it at Costco and save up 1 ticket. But I know that sometimes we don't think about those things because we don't plan ahead and it's just like you just go on the spot. But the good thing about it is that you can buy them and save them for when you use them if that's something that you want to take advantage of. Another one for entertainment is the museums. A lot of different, not just museums, but even like Disneyland and Universal Studios and theme parks, places like that, they'll have either a student discount. And I know for museums, like the Palm Springs Art Museum has a free admission day. Like once a month, you can go in for free. And a lot of museums have that. So it's just about planning it out and knowing when you can take advantage of those resources. Another one for museums and attractions like that, I know Cristina has said in the past, anytime that you're going into, and it might be a little bit of the travel too, but when you're going to travel anywhere, you're visiting a new city, look into the city passes because usually they'll have a bundle of attractions that you can pay for and you end up saving like $50, $60 something. So that you're thinking, for example, I'm planning on going to San Francisco this upcoming week. And, there's so many little things that you can do over there, museums and, tours and things like that. Well, instead of going through each of one of those sites to buy everything separately, you can go into the city pass and you get to pay for 3 attractions and you pay kind of like a set price for the 3 attractions. And I ended up saving like $80 buying everything together rather than buying them separately because I was still going to get the 2 attractions, but I bought them together and I was able to get a discount. So it's just kind of looking for those little tricks and looking it up. There's always discounts and there's always people sharing how they were able to combine offers or discounts and get a more affordable price for stuff. We also put the music because we know there's memberships that you can also get discounted. Apple Music and Spotify offer student discounts. So if you already have those memberships, look into it and see if you can get a discount because sometimes all it takes is for you to put your student email and then instead of paying $10, you're paying $5. So check for the services that you already have and see if they offer a student discount so that you can try to lower those prices and things that you're already paying for.
And you made me think of something else. If you guys have a cell phone carrier, I have Verizon, right? And we will have like the cell phone in the next few slides. But I wanted to point out Verizon the last few years has been offering either Disney Plus, Discovery, or even Apple Music for free for a certain time when you have certain plans. And so what I tell students is check out your cell phone plan because sometimes these are already free in there and you don't even know because you haven't activated them. You would need to activate them basically to have them be available. And I just discovered the Apple Music. So that's why it made me think about that. But then we can go into the cell phone discount in the next slide. But I just wanted to make sure to share that. So travel. Okay, so travel is one of my favorite things. I think everyone on our team knows that I'm addicted to that. But one day I want to just be able to travel the world as often as I want and, with as many friends as possible, because I feel like every time you travel, you learn something about yourself and obviously about the place and the people that you visit. And so I want to just put in a plug that if you haven't considered studying abroad, that you should. Of course, we are in a pandemic. when you do look at it, obviously do it in a safe manner, but don't rule it out, because that's like one of the funnest experiences I think that you can have. And then it kind of sets you up to like be a lifelong traveler, right? We wanted to put in a couple of things here because we know some of you are going to go cross country or going to go internationally. So we just kind of sprinkled some things for you to think about here. URail one is obviously if you go traveling in Europe, and that's a cheaper way to go if you're going to be there for extended periods of time. If you're only going to go for a week or two, or it's a summer event, then I wouldn't recommend it because it is costly. It's better buying tickets as you plan your trips. And then you have like the Amtrak or the Sunline bus or the Flix bus, and then the city passes that Fatima shared with you. What I like to tell people when they're going to travel or plan a trip, because this is what I do, I think about it in terms of buckets. The first bucket I look at is transportation. How much is it going to cost me to get there? And what do I want to do? And what mode of transportation do I want to use? And normally that will like then go into the next question. How can I get the cheapest air flight? How can I get the cheapest bus or the train or whatever? Then I start thinking about where am I going to live, right? So a lot of you are going to live either on campus housing, or if you're moving out of state, then you're going to, obviously on campus or off campus, whichever one you want to look at. Or if you're visiting internationally, figuring that piece of it out. So it's transportation, housing, or where you're going to stay. And then the other two are food and entertainment. And so when you break travel up into those four categories, if you plan it, I can assure you, you can reduce the cost. And I like to travel in families. I travel with another family because we've discovered that Airbnb is just as good or even sometimes better than hotels. And we've done this in foreign countries and we've done it nationally. We have had some interesting experiences, I will tell you that. And I've learned a lot about how to like vet them before I get them. Live and learn, right? So that's on the travel piece of it. Think about that. And I do see a comment that came through, Marlene.
Luis brought up Uni Days, which offers student discounts on Apple, HP, and clothing. And another student comment: the app offers so many student discounts. I get discounts on Amazon, H&M, American Eagle, Apple Music, Mac, Costco, and more. All you need to do is create an account and connect it to your school portal with your student ID and password. All your student discounts are in one location with those apps. There's so many apps out there. They're lifesaver. I use mine all the time, especially when I would go to Target, because I can just clip my coupon right there when I check out. It scans it. A lot of these, you can literally go into food and clothing in one location, cut your coupons, even make money off of them.
Yes, you're so right. And I think Luis was feeling where we were heading by giving the Uni Days. I didn't know about that one. And I want to bring it back to this is what kind of being frugal is always discovering new ways to save money and not saying, well, I have enough money to cover it. I'm not going to worry about it. Of course, if you have finals and you have other priorities that particular week or during that particular time, I'm not going to tell you to focus on this, but I am going to tell you to try to make an appointment with yourself, whether it's 4 times a month, once a week, to assess where's my bank account? Where am I leaking money? Where can I save money? How can I shave some money, some savings, or how can I then save that money and let it become a little savings account for a rainy day? That's what being frugal is about. It's not about focusing on this. It's just about making it work for your lifestyle, because then I know that it could become stressful. And that's the last thing that we want it to be. We actually want it to become a stress reliever for you so that you have money to do the things that you enjoy.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, I know we're putting a lot of different resources and apps and you name it. I've used a lot of different ones. I use many of the ones that are on this slide, and then I don't use them because some of them I found that even though they sound really great, they take a lot more time than they give me. So some of them didn't work for me. I tried them and I was like, you know what, this is too hard to use. This is not, it's not worth my time, or whatever the reason is. And if that doesn't work for you, there's just so many things out there that you can use. These are just some that we know we've used. We know we've heard from students that they use and that we really like. We just wanted to share with you, but know that if there's only 3 apps that you like and you want to stick to those apps, just use those. I used to do the Fetch Rewards a lot. All you have to do for Fetch Rewards is every time you go shopping, any store really, mostly like convenience stores, groceries and stuff, all you have to do is scan your receipt, and then the app gives you points for some of the items that you shop, and then you start collecting those points, and then I don't know where you have a $10 Amazon gift card. Well, my logic is how long does it take me and how much effort does it take me to take a picture of the receipt that I'm going to end up throwing in the trash anyways, right? So I do those. I try not to forget. Sometimes I forget, but it's just those little things that you can start accumulating without it costing you more than like literally taking a picture of your receipt. It works for some people. Some people are like, it's too hard for me to be saving my receipts and to be taking pictures. There's other options that you can do. Just wanted to so that whatever works for you, use those. And then if they don't, then move on to the next one.
Yeah, I agree. It has to work for you for it to work for your lifestyle. If it doesn't work for you, it's not going to be a habit that you want to keep. And like Fatima, I would recommend trying three things, or like saying this week, I'm going to focus on my transportation. Next week, I'll focus on food. Kind of like set up some benchmarks for yourself. For example, for me this week, it was about my daughter started driving, and it's very fitting here. She's 17. So our insurance literally doubled. So what did that mean? That meant I called the insurance and I shopped around to get the best policy coverage that would fit our family. And because I did that, I saved $180 because she got the good student discount for 6 months. $180 to some people is like, it's not a lot. It's like $30 a month. But to us, I like thinking of it as like a little snowball effect. I can keep that $180, and if I do it twice a year, that's what, $360. That could mean to me a couple of stays at a hotel, because that's where I like, honestly, you'll know my brain goes into travel. So I equal the savings and I put it into my travel budget. And so you think about what you want. Maybe it's a new car, it's a new laptop, it's whatever. You kind of will have to chase your own carrot. And that's where it brings me here, the car insurance. And it was like I said, if you guys are great students and you're not using the discount, call them today. You will save yourself money, or you will save your mom money or your parents money. It's a lot. I would highly recommend, if you haven't done that, to do it this week. The other one that I told you about previously was the cell phone. Most of your cell phone companies now offer a student discount, an education discount, some kind of discount. All you have to do is call them. And that's easy. Like, I think we get 10% through my husband's work, but others are more generous. I've heard of students getting up to 20% because of their student ID. Your ID will get you those kinds of discounts. So I wanted to share those two before I pass it on to Fatima and Marlene.
Thank you, Cristina. Yeah, and Amazon Prime is another really good one. You get a 6-month Prime membership with your student email. And again, very similar. You just have to go and register, put your student email. They capture that as a student email, and then you get it for 6 months. So that's a really good one. Another one that I don't know if we included on a different slide or here, maybe it was during the software and hardware one. But the Microsoft Suite, the 365, there's a lot of different hardwares and softwares that your institution will make available to you for free. So take advantage of those. I know that for me, having the Word, PowerPoint, Excel, having the actual program on my computer was very useful because I couldn't get used to doing on the Google Docs. I know that nowadays is a lot different and we can do a lot in the cloud, but if you want to have access to like the full program, sometimes they give it to you for free as part of your student fee while you're a student. So those are kind of a lot of different places and a lot of different ways that you can save money just by being a student. The other one is a Target Cartwheel. They do give you 15% discount when you do your college registry. So for those of you that are going up to college this fall, or you're gonna start buying the things for your dorm or for your place wherever you're gonna be moving to, not only do they let you do a college checklist online and you can add the items through a registry, but they give you 15% to shop those items as well. So that's another one to keep in mind.
Thank you, Fatima. On this slide, before we leave it, I wanted to make sure that you guys take advantage of your local library. You'd be surprised. I have an English master's. A lot of books that I needed for my English classes, they were the greats. Like, it was things that like Jane Austen. They were at my local library. So if that particular time in my life, I didn't want to spend the money on that, I would just go check them out. We have a great library locally. It's a Rancho Mirage library, and it's open and available to many of you. And you can take advantage of those free resources. So I did want to share that with you guys. And then I wanted to kind of reiterate what we've been sharing throughout this presentation, is that kind of living frugally is, like I said, it's a mindset. It's about wanting to make your dollar multiply, or kind of get for things for free that you could avoid buying. It might mean that you cool down and not buy a purchase until you figure out if it's on sale, or if you can get a discount with it. It could mean that you look for ways to make sure your credit is good. Right now, as a student, you're building credit. When you graduate, you're gonna need it. Well, you could even get a free credit report, an annual free credit report. It means tracking your expenses and looking at how do you minimize that every month so that you can save for like a rainy day or for that carrot you want to chase. And then it's like I said, it's always negotiating. Everything in life is negotiable, including when you're buying big appliances or price matches and things like that. Look at all the resources and don't just because you see the sticker, price doesn't mean that that's the price that you're gonna pay. It means planning, it means being proactive, and it just means that you're always checking with yourself. That's why I wanted to challenge you guys to check in with yourself once a week and see where you're doing really well and areas that you can improve on.